may I ask you to kindly put your phones in silent so that it doesn't cause disruption when the chairperson speaks. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce the chairperson of the Commonwealth Observer Group, the former President of South Africa, His Excellency Thabo Mbeki, and Honorable Amina Mohammed, former Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Heritage and Culture, and former Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs in Kenya. She is the Deputy Chairperson of the Commonwealth Observer Group. And Mr. Joshua Satipa, who is leading the staff support team of Commonwealth Secretariat and from the staff support team. His Excellency Thabo Mbeki will be presenting the Observer Group's arrival statement, copies of which will be made available afterwards. His Excellency will then take questions from the floor. I now invite His Excellency Thabo Mbeki to read his arrival statement. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We are still setting up here. Okay, no, don't. You are not going to stand, sit like that. Why don't you put it down here? It's not going to hold it. At least it took 2 hours. No problem. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the press, welcome. Thank you very much indeed for coming this morning. Okay. I was saying, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the press, for coming this morning. As you've been told, to my left here, this is my chief, the deputy chair of the, they call her that, deputy chair of the Commonwealth Observers, Amina Mohammed, who is effectively my boss. I'm the chair of the observer group. And my other chief is this one, Joshua Stephen, next to me here, from the Commonwealth Secretariat. But thanks a lot for coming. I'm going to read a statement which we'll definitely distribute at yourselves. It's my honor and privilege to serve as chairperson of this Commonwealth Observer Group to Nigeria's 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. The group was constituted by the Commonwealth Secretary General, the Right Honorable Patricia Scotland KC, at the invitation of the chairperson of the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, INEC. The Commonwealth Observer Group comprises eminent persons from around the Commonwealth, including politicians, diplomats, experts in law, human rights, gender equality, and other election administration activists and leaders. And the group is supported by a staff team from the Commonwealth Secretariat, led by Mr. Joshua Satipa next to me here, who is Senior Director of Strategy Portfolio, Partnership and Digital Division within the Commonwealth Secretariat. As all of us know, I don't need to say this, Nigeria is Africa's largest democracy and a very valued member of the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth has a long tradition of supporting the country's democratic development through election observation. And this will be the seventh time a Commonwealth Observer Group will be observing elections in Nigeria since 1999. And our group has been in Abuja since the 18th of February. And our mandate is to observe and assess the pre-election period, activities on polling day, and the post-election period. And throughout, we consider all factors relating to the credibility of the electoral process. We assess whether the elections are conducted according to the standards of democratic elections to which Nigeria has committed itself, including the constitutional framework and national legislation, as well as Commonwealth and other international commitments. Take this as independent and impartial. And later today, my fellow observers and I will meet with the chair of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to learn more about the preparations for polling day. We'll deploy our observers to different parts of the country to observe the campaigning, voting, counting, and results process, having taken into account the need to receive briefings from relevant stakeholders, including representatives of political parties, the government, independent institutions, the Commonwealth High Commissioners here in Abuja, and various civil society organizations, including groups representing gender, youth, and people with disabilities. Among other aspects, we'll consider whether the conditions exist for credible elections and whether the voting process is transparent and inclusive. The Commonwealth Observer Group has no executive role. Our function is not to supervise, but to observe the process as a whole and to form a judgment accordingly. We are here in our individual capacities as eminent and experienced Commonwealth citizens, and as such our assessment will be our own and not that of any Commonwealth member government or organization. And following election day, we will deliver an interim statement which will provide our group's preliminary assessment of the electoral process at a press conference on the 27th of February here in Abuja. And more details of the press conference will be shared by the Commonwealth staff supporting the Observer Group in due course. And on completion of our assessment, we will submit our recommendation in a report to the Commonwealth Secretary General, who will forward it to the government of Nigeria, the country's independent National Electoral Commission, the leadership of the political parties that have taken part or would have taken part in the elections, and then to all of the Commonwealth governments. And the report will then be made public. When we make our observations known, our intent is to offer constructive support to help strengthen the democratic culture, processes, and institutions in Nigeria. In doing so, the Commonwealth Observer Group will make recommendations to the authorities concerned on institutional, procedural, and other matters that would assist the holding of such elections in future. And this month's elections will be Africa's largest democratic exercise. It is clear that the outcomes of the elections will be significant not only for Nigeria, but also for the entire continent. And therefore, we urge all stakeholders in Nigeria to uphold their commitment to ensure a peaceful and inclusive election in which people of Nigeria are able to freely exercise their rights to vote, with the fundamental freedoms of expression, of association, of assembly, fully respected. So on behalf of my fellow observers, we wish Nigeria well as it holds the polls this Saturday. And the Nigerian people expect all stakeholders involved to play their part, ensuring that this month's elections are peaceful, transparent, and credible. And obviously we join, as the Commonwealth Observer Group, we join in that sentiment. But thank you very much again, ladies and gentlemen of the media, for coming to this press conference. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chair. We will now take some questions. Please raise your hand if you have a question and state your name and your organization first. And a member of the Commonwealth staff team will provide you with a microphone. Yes, sir.
Good morning, the Commonwealth team. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Aliwa from the Lake Trust. I want to ask, 2019 election, 5 days to this. 2019 election, 5 days to the 2019 election, and 5 days to the 2020 election. How will you compare the recommendation you made then and what is obtainable now and what you expect.
What you take them one at a time?
However, you feel would be more appropriate. Yes, please. One at a time would be, if that's what you prefer.
You have to deal with that.
Lincoln?
Or is it late for this one?
Yes. Lincoln could respond.
It must come here. Wait for you must come and sit. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. Microphone, baby.
Now, this important thing is that this mic's not him.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for the Daily Trust for that question. It is an important question. In terms of the Commonwealth Observer Group, the methodology that they employ, they will make an assessment of the previous Commonwealth Observer Group's reports, their findings. The Commonwealth Secretariat, we adopt a whole of election cycle approach in our methodology. So these assessments are important. They will not only look at the current scenario, they will consider what happened in 2019 and also consider the recommendations that were made at the time, whether they were taken up by various stakeholders in the country, and will then offer the appropriate assessments and recommendations for the way forward, looking ahead to the next elections in 4 years' time. Thank you.
Please.
Any next?
Okay, go on. Yeah, you. Done.
Yeah. Okay, proximity, I would take my question. Thank you.
No, please give him the mic. Thanks.
Good morning, Your Excellency, for coming election. And most of them are saying they are not going to turn out until there's enough currency institution. So how do you consider that factor to predict a successful outcome of this election? Thank you very much.
My brother, you are asking us to make a comment now that we'll make at the end. We know we are not, we can't make an assessment of this kind. We studied the reality of Nigeria, this one of them, to understand. But in the end, to measure the impact or otherwise of whatever can only come at the end. To interpret what the Nigerian people themselves have said and thought in the way they've acted. So that question, I can't answer the question now. But at the end, ask me again. Thanks. Yes, ma'am, please.
Good morning, Your Excellency. I am Princess Ekwi Ajide of the Anambra Broadcasting Service. Sir, in your statement, you said you've been in Nigeria since the 18th of this month, and your duty is to observe and assess. So my question is, what have you observed, and what is your assessment so far of the pre-election process? Thank you.
And as I said, as we said in the statement, a part of what we've got to do, we started doing that from the 18th, is really to get to understand in as much detail as possible what the different stakeholders in Nigeria are saying about any question and every question relevant to the elections. So at this stage, really essentially our task is to listen carefully to everybody. All of the candidates, their parties, and as I'm saying, civil society groups, everybody. We're meeting the chair of INEC, we'll meet the chief of the police, and all of that. Really to come to an assessment, an observation. This is what you observe, this is what you think. It really can only come at the end. Otherwise, we can't prejudge what the Nigerian people are going to do. But we must respect what the Nigerian people would have done when they've actually gone to the polls and so on. Thanks.
Very good morning. My name is Hajia Sani. I'm with the Voice of Nigeria. My question is, for most Commonwealth countries, elections are required to be free and fair. devoid of any rancor or crises. We've experienced over the last several elections across several Commonwealth countries some pockets of violence enabled by the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. What is the Commonwealth doing to reduce the influx of small arms and light weapons that tend to fuel crises during elections?
I'm sorry, left answer. The next question is on the end here. We're coming to this end that was here next. No, she's asking what are we doing in the Commonwealth to fight against weapons? Yes, yes, please.
Okay, can I respond to the question about proliferation of small arms? I think as we all know, Commonwealth members are also members of other forums, in particular the United Nations, which has a very active agenda on addressing proliferation of small arms. The Commonwealth, as part of the UN system, or Commonwealth members as part of the UN system, are actively involved in that. And that is the forum where small arms issues, including all proliferation issues, have been discussed. From the Commonwealth's perspective, ours is to continue to engage with stakeholders, in particular with member states and all other parties at the national level, and to listen and to facilitate where there's a need for facilitation through the good offices of the Secretary General when there's a need for that. But we do not particularly engage or have a program that addresses the proliferation of small arms. That is done at the UN and through other conventions. Thank you.
Thanks. There was a hand up here. Oh, it's no longer there. Oh, it has moved. Okay, please. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
It's okay, let me go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is Festus Griffin from Benton Vision. My question would be, while you were reading your speech, you said from 99 you've been coming around to observe our elections. And the purpose of observation is you make recommendations and you try to see that there is a change in attitude or the way things are done. Two ways it will be. From 1990 now, the recommendations you have made over the years, what is the level of compliance you have observed? And after this election, if you are not satisfied with what you will see or what you saw, is there a possibility that you can make a recommendation that will not be very, very palatable to the Nigerian government?
Generally, I do not between the two of you is going to talk about the situation since 1999. This is generally what the Commonwealth Observer Group has got to do. As we were saying, is to observe as thoroughly as possible, make an assessment that is truthful, that is honest, that is as comprehensive as possible, and then make recommendations based on the totality of all of that. The central task of the recommendations in all of the elections that take place in the Commonwealth countries, the central objective of the recommendations is to strengthen the democratic systems in our countries in all respects, starting from registration of voters, voter education, inclusiveness, people with disability, the youth, women, and so on. It's got to be like that. Then it's got to be honest. It's got to be honest, and therefore it can't be the report cannot be written in order to please the country where the elections, or the government of the country where the elections have taken place. Nor would it be the objective to displease the government. It's to tell the truth and look as much as possible into the detail of these issues. That is why you find among us, I've got a whole pile of documents at home, the electoral law of Nigeria, whatever, you look at that. What does the law in Nigeria provide for in terms of elections? So that even when we make recommendations which might attach to things that are in the law, we take into account what is the statutory and constitutional situation here. So I'm saying this, you can't write a report to please or to displease. It's to tell the truth. With this really important objective, to help this Commonwealth member country to entrench democracy in the way that would be defined in the national law and other conventions or whatever else, Commonwealth things and African Union and so on, relating to these matters about democratic systems of government. So it may very well be that some of the things that might be said might not be sit comfortably with the governments, but it wouldn't be the intention of the group to displease anybody. But it's really very, very important that the report should be, particularly the recommendations, really should be as truthful and as honest as possible. Yes, please.
So I have a mic here.
Oh, sorry, yes, go on.
Good morning. My name is Chiamaka Okafor. I report for Premium Times. My question is around what the general concerns would be around leading up to the elections, especially within the sub-region. Lots of coups recently around Nigeria's immediate neighbors, and we see that countries have left what is constitutionally or democratically right. And of course, there are concerns in Nigeria, security, and the rest of them. Are there specific concerns the Commonwealth Observer Group has leading up to the election? Perhaps conditions that might lead to the elections not holding, which is a major concern currently. I'm sure you've been following. So please respond to me on what the concerns are leading up to the elections. Thank you.
Now again, I'm not sure I can answer a question like that. He says, I'm saying we try to meet everybody. For instance, you know that the chair of INEC, for instance, delivered a very important report in London at Chatham House on the work that's been done by INEC for some years to prepare for this election. Very, I don't know if you've seen that statement. It's very, very, in my view, very important and very detailed. So all of us, even before we come to Abuja, you read that statement in detail in order to understand what does INEC say about all these matters relevant to the election. I was saying, for instance, we will meet Inspector General of Police and listen to what the police say. Meet the political parties, civil society groups, and so on. So in the end, assessment, we must get an assessment about what are the worrying things, not make determinations ourselves. It must come from the objective situation in the country and the views of the Nigerian people themselves. So naturally, there are certain things about which obviously we're very concerned about, that the elections should be peaceful. It's very, very important that elections should be peaceful throughout the country. Would be very, very interested, of course, that whatever might be happening in the region, it does not have a negative impact on these matters that have got to do with these elections in Nigeria. As we were saying in the statement, even matters of exclusion. So you naturally would want to see this. What's the situation in the Northeast? of Nigeria because of this whole problem of Boko Haram. Yeah. So what impact does that have? Of course, we'll be very interested in that. Not to make a determination beforehand, but obviously to understand what would happen there, because we know what the situation is. So in the end, the kind of determination we are asking for, what would be our concerns, would really be concerns that would come out of our discussions with this totality of Nigerian road plans. Thanks.
We'll take two more questions because we're running out of time.
Good morning. Sorry, I have a mic.
Yes, please.
Good morning. My name is Jack Mangut for SABC. My question would be, how many of the observers are here in Nigeria for this election, and how many states would you be traveling to observe the election? Thank you.
Should we pass this question to the president?
No. You want to answer? Of course it is. We've got 16 observers who are supported by a team from the Commonwealth Secretariat. So altogether that would be, I don't know, something like 30 people. And in terms of our current planning, we want to be in Kano, we want to be in Sokoto, in Lagos, in Ondo State, in Edo, in Rivers, in Benue, here in Abuja, the capital. Which ones have I missed? I do not know. So that's where we'll be going.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Godwin. I work with CGTN. My question is, despite the presence of foreign election observers, previous elections have been marred with irregularities, violence, fraud. How much effort are you doing to curb some of all these local communities? Is there any representatives from your place that will curb some of all those local communities? Thank you.
Good morning.
Wait a minute. Well, no, see, the Commonwealth does not have representatives in any of the Commonwealth countries. So there won't be Commonwealth representatives in Nigeria or South Africa or Ghana or wherever. But certainly, in terms of the engagement of the Commonwealth, this observatory with the election process, in our own interactions, like with all the parties, which will do as many as we can, there are these matters that we would naturally raise, that please would like to see peaceful elections. And the agreement that the parties have signed, and I understand they will re-sign again on Wednesday, about those matters. That please let us all respect those. That will be our communication. As well as if anything else relevant to this. We would like to see, as we're saying in the statement, an inclusive election. So indeed, in our interactions with the political parties and the political leaders and so on, that we would want to say that we want an inclusive election, and nobody excluded because of disability or whatever. But in the same way, there being a Commonwealth presence in Nigeria or anywhere else, in localities and so on, best place there to kind of answer the kind of question that you're putting.
Good morning, my Nigerian citizen. Taking up from the last question that was asked, most times we have the elections, they are marred violence and a lot of irregularities. And the observers we normally see sort of like don't reflect actually the situation on the ground. And there has been sort of, a lot of times it seems as if there is more issues get towards stability rather than the people's mandate. So what are you going to do differently to ensure that it is the confidence of Nigerians told in the observers that are coming on the observation you're going to do to reflect the situation on ground, not just about stability and accepting the process, but reflecting exactly what is on ground before, during, and after election. You've been here since on the 18th. A lot of violence have been going on. Are you taking those violence into consideration even yet we are not, it's still not election? And is there any way you're making Nigerians to know and also to government to know that this time around the observation are going to be fully based on what is happening, and not just what is happening in the cities but also in the rural areas? Because what we have a lot of time is that these things are geared towards the observers being led towards certain parties, certain places where people behave very well, but they don't get to see what is happening in other places. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. As I was saying earlier, the reports that the Commonwealth observers do are intended to be comprehensive in the sense of reflecting on all matters that impact on the elections. Whatever the matters might be, whether it's violence or whatever else. And therefore really and need to tell the truth. The truth as the observers have seen the truth. So this is what we observed, this is what we heard, and then all of that. This is a comprehensive reality. You need that. Because in the end, as I was saying, we've got to make recommendations. You can't make recommendations on the basis of a partial understanding of the matters at issue. You've got to try and be as comprehensive as possible in order then to make recommendations which are relevant. The matter that's raised by our colleagues now about reassuring the Nigerian population as any other, maybe it's something that our colleagues from the Commonwealth Secretariat might look at. The report will be made public, as we've said, after its distribution to the government of Nigeria, INEC, and then everybody else. That report, I don't know, so we to look at what is to be done in order to make sure that this public report and then reaches the ordinary people in Nigeria. It will come, the report will come, it will be public. But the mechanism to ensure that actually then the ordinary people of Nigeria will say, well, from what we read here, they understood what the problem was with regard to women in Nigeria. Or maybe they didn't understand, whatever, but that's a matter that would be dealt with in the report. But how that report gets to the ordinary masses of the people, I'm saying this is something that perhaps we need to look at. But the report itself would be of the kind that she's asking about. He said that was the last hand. Yes. I say another hand here. Please go ahead.
Just one last final question. If you don't have a mic, you speak about louder, please.
Right. My question is, I know it's not expected that the Commonwealth would comment on Nigeria's domestic issues, but the situation that we've seen in the last weeks, begs the question: does the Commonwealth believe in Nigeria's institutions, the INEC, the ruling government? Does the Commonwealth believe in their sincerity to hold truly credible elections? We've seen members of the ruling party threatening violence. We've seen, different kind of manipulations in recent weeks, different kind of interpretations to policies that have surfaced, in the last week. So, does the Commonwealth believe in Nigeria's institutions, in the government, in the ruling party for credible elections?
The Commonwealth.
Mr. Chairman, the Commonwealth Observer Group does not make judgment, does not pass judgment on the credibility of Nigeria or any other Commonwealth member that is invited to come and observe elections. We issue the report at the end of the process that gives a comprehensive assessment of what we observed in the lead up, during the elections, and during the elections. The freedom to engage in the elections and all the other related activities that are very important for conducting a free and fair, a transparent and credible election. But as to comment on the credibility of institutions, that would be tantamount to, it would go against the spirit of the Commonwealth Observer Mission and how it supports or observes elections in the country. So I'm afraid, Mr. President, we are not able to make that call.
There's a hand.
My name is Luminous Janamike and I write for Vanguard newspaper. On the final note, I would like to ask you what, from the states you reeled out you are going to visit, we can see that the southeast and the northeast geopolitical zones were not listed. And these are areas where there are concerns of unknown gunmen in the southeast, threatening that the elections will not hold in that region. And also the northeast, where Boko Haram has been having a field day in some local governments since 2009. So why are you not visiting those key areas? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, the Commonwealth Observer Group is part of a larger international observer group. There's the African Union, there's ECOWAS, there's the EU, and this is part of a joint effort. So there will be observer groups in those areas where we are not going to be. They are not, I do not think there's any particular area that we've carved out and said we're not going to go there. Of course there are considerations, logistics and otherwise, but we have enough observers in country to cover this election across all the 36 states. We may not be there, but other partners will be there, and I'm sure they will provide their own assessment as to what they observed and how the elections are conducted.
And normally what happens is that the observer groups, while they are in country, they meet, they negotiate, they talk among themselves, share experiences, alert one another about what happened. So that cooperation would then deal with the matter that is discussing.
Thank you, Chair. This is all the time we have with the Chair. He has another engagement. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Please do join us for some tea and coffee and snacks just outside, where we will distribute the arrival statement that he presented. And thank you for attending this press conference, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.